Chakshurumilitam yena tasmai Sri Gurave namaha Sri Chaitanya manobishtam stapitam yena bhutale Shayam rupa gadamayam dadati shapadantikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulangayate Girim Yakripa Tamaham Vande Siguru Dinatarinam. So, last night we had discussed that today, in the first class, we would talk about feminine nature and male nature and how they work together. And as we know, in our culture today, the male role and the female role are very mixed up. And especially because training for men and women is very similar, as opposed to in traditional society, where the men were educated much more than the women, and the women were educated domestically. And so there was no plan for the women to develop a career, but the plan was to be wives and children. So they were trained for that. And because they were trained for that, their thinking, obviously, is much different than the average woman today who wants to marry, most of whom want to marry and have children, but are not trained for that. At least the education they get is training them or preparing them primarily for working. And working in the same fields often as men are working in, and working in the same environments as men are working in, and therefore sometimes needing the same, not only skills, but characteristics that the men have. So everyone has male nature, everyone has female nature. But obviously if you're a man, you have more male nature generally, and if you're a woman, more female nature. But in the present age, I think we can say that many men have more female nature than is healthy, and many women have more male nature than is healthy. Or I would say maybe not healthy, but natural. At least if we compared it to traditional society. Now, in traditional society, it doesn't mean women didn't do things men did. Often they did. But the social interactions were different. And just because a woman did a male job, it doesn't mean she became a male at home and dominated the man. Because Draupadi was running the kingdom when the Pandavas were gone. So that's kind of a male job. But she didn't become a man. She didn't treat them like she were a man when they came home. So that's something women have to learn. As Prabhupada said, on Sankirtan, if you're going to be successful, you have to be bold. Which seems not to be a female quality, but Prabhupada said when you come home, then you should be shy. But for preaching, you have to be bold. So he was kind of giving that male-female, when to be male, when to be female. Sometimes you have to be male. There were even in Indian tradition, there were women who were kshatriyas, who were very strong. They wielded weapons, they fought, sometimes hand-to-hand combat. And you see that in today's world. There are women who do many things that men do, that require nerves of steel that you would think only men have, and women do them also. So it's not that women can't do a lot of the things, but in my understanding, it's if they lose their feminine nature by doing male activity, then it creates a problem for the men. Because men do appreciate male qualities in women, but not control. You know, you have a woman who's strong, who's not going to get cheated, who can figure things out. A man appreciates that. You know, sometimes she stands up for herself. But when she deals with you as someone who's controlling and trying to dominate, the man doesn't appreciate that. So there's good about having male qualities and there's bad. And most of what I see, the bad comes in the social interaction. Just like it would be very awkward for a woman, let's say a woman's got a PhD in something that we need. And so we ask her to take charge of a department in Mayapur, and she's highly qualified. And all the people she's working with are men who are older than her. And it might be hard for a lot of those men to work with her. Not because she's not qualified, but because socially it's awkward. Men feel awkward being controlled by women. Or it may mean that because she's a woman, they feel awkward dealing with a woman. So she may be qualified, but socially it doesn't work. So Vedic culture takes a lot into consideration of social interaction. And a lot of times I think in ISKCON, we put women down for things that they shouldn't be put down. In other words, they have skills and abilities. But if we say they shouldn't do something, it's not necessarily because they can't, not always, but because socially it's not working, it's not healthy. There's a story in which Prabhupada wanted to make some women GBC. He had, in the original GBC, he had 3 women. But then he crossed them out. And then, what?
There was no sannyasis.
No, I don't think so. Original GBC, yeah, it was all grihastas. So that would have been 8 men and 3 women, all grihastas. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj found a paper, and those 3 names were crossed out. And one of Prabhupada's servants at that time said that the reason Prabhupada crossed them out is because he realized that the men wouldn't accept it. Not because he felt they weren't qualified, but just socially it wouldn't work for the men. Now some people could say he crossed it out because he didn't feel they were qualified, or there may be other reasons. But anyway, this is what Prabhupada's servant said, who was there at the time, that he thought these women could be GBC, but it wouldn't work with the men within that. So you could say, okay, that's true, it doesn't work. Or you could say that Prabhupada accepted that social interaction doesn't work. Or you could say, if we were more mature, it would have worked. But we shouldn't say materially they weren't qualified, which is what some people would say, because that's not the reason that Prabhupada made the choice, but socially it doesn't work. So in some situations, the social considerations are what's happening. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about male nature, female nature, and how it works well and how it doesn't work well. And I just wanted to preface that this discussion, it kind of mimics many discussions where you're discussing something which is natural, just the way the world is, but society today doesn't follow things that are natural. So then, being conditioned by modern society, it seems wrong, or it seems old-fashioned, when it's not actually wrong or old-fashioned, it's just that society doesn't follow it anymore, even though it's natural. For example, when Prabhupada would talk to reporters about women being protected or women being under men, that idea sends a message to women that I don't have an identity outside of the identity of my husband. I don't have an identity as an independent woman. I only have an identity in relation to my husband. I'm a wife. I'm to be protected by my husband, and so forth. So naturally, modern women will think that's really subordination, maybe slavery, some old religious idea to suppress people and so forth. And then Prabhupada would say, no, that's not what it is. That's just natural. A 16-year-old boy can travel the world, no problem. 16-year-old girl, she has to have a boy with her, otherwise she's going to get raped, kidnapped. Something's going to happen to her, unless she's big and a black belt in karate or something and can defend herself. But normally, she's going to have a hard time. So Prabhupada, in making these points, he was saying, it's not some old idea, it's just the way nature is. And so what we're talking about here is, you're discussing nature, and then you're discussing in modern society, in many cases, they don't accept nature. They don't acknowledge this is the nature of woman, or this is the nature of man, and they fight against it. They say, no, we should make it more equal, without acknowledging the differences. So, now one of the things that Prabhupada says about the nature of woman is that it's her nature to serve. And so the idea of service can carry the concept or the idea of exploitation, right? Oh, I'm supposed to serve you. So that sounds like, well, maybe you're taking advantage of me. In the marriage ceremony that Prabhupada did, the woman would say, I promise to serve you. And the husband would say, I promise to take care of you. Can you remember that? I so-and-so, promise to take care of Krishna Devi throughout my life, whether, in health and happiness. Basically, that's what Prabhupada had to say. Whether, however, I will take care of her, I will protect her, and so on. And then he had the woman say, I promise to serve Krishna Das throughout my life and help him and support him, like that. So it's natural for a woman to serve, and it's unnatural for a woman to serve a man who doesn't protect. And it's natural for a man to protect. So it's natural for a woman to serve, natural for a man to protect. So when you have a man who's protecting and a woman serving, it works really well. It's not that the woman doesn't want to serve, that's her nature. And it's not that the man doesn't want to protect, that's his nature. But if the woman thinks, or if the woman doesn't have a man that protects, or thinks I'll be exploited if I just serve, or the man is weak and therefore he doesn't protect, then because he's weak, the woman can't serve. So if the man doesn't do his job, the woman can't do it. And sometimes the man wants to protect and the woman wants to be independent, and he can't protect her because she wants to do things her own way. Right? So then he can't be a man because she doesn't let him. Or he wants to guide her and she doesn't want to listen. Right? Because in traditional society, which of course is different from now, but the traditional idea is, because the woman was being trained to be a wife, the husband was being trained at Gurukula, then he would give her the education that he got. That's how she'd learn. So she couldn't go to the Gurukula, so she'd learn from him what he learned. So it was a natural position. Part of the protection was education, because that's how she got that higher education, because she couldn't go to Gurukula, and he could give it to her. So that's why he said he's like the guru. So it was kind of natural. And it's quite easy to understand. If you look at any relationship between two people, where one is going to take the role of protector and one is going to take the role of servant, if one of or other doesn't take the proper role, the other can't do their function. And probably in our culture, the word servant doesn't really has a bad connotation, because it has a connotation of exploitation. But my point is, it's the nature of women to serve, and they're actually happy when they do it, if they have someone to serve who can protect them. Just like we're happy to serve our spiritual master. But if our spiritual master doesn't protect us, doesn't take care of us, isn't Krishna conscious, isn't bona fide, we're not happy to serve, right? And then you have people who've lost gurus once, twice, 3 times. And some of them, they don't want to serve anybody anymore because they don't trust anybody, even though service is natural. So that can happen to women, right? You don't have a good husband or a good man, and then you don't want to serve. Prabhupada says that a woman will control a husband through service. By control, he means that the husband will do for the woman whatever it is she needs as a result of her dedication to him. That's the psychology. So if the woman thinks, if I serve, I'll be exploited, Prabhupada's saying, it won't happen, the opposite will happen. And if you serve, then you'll actually control him, because he'll do whatever you want. You have examples in the Bhagavatam. Sukanya was about 25, Chaivana Muni was about 95. And her father had asked her to marry Chaivana Muni because if he didn't give something in charity and Chaivana wanted her, he would curse them, because Sukanya did something to offend Chaivana. So his father asked her, and she did it. And so he was 95, you can imagine. She's a queen, a princess, beautiful, and now she's married to a 95-year-old man. And it's also said he was irritable. He had a bad disposition. So, 2 things were bad. Wasn't even really nice to her. But she accepted it. And she served him faithfully. And she didn't get upset when he got upset. Which is, an amazing quality. Right? Can you imagine a woman who doesn't get upset when her husband is irritable? Get out of here, I don't want to see you, don't bother me. Come back later. What woman wouldn't get upset? But she didn't get upset. And because she was so devoted, he arranged via the Ashwini Kumaras that they would give him youth. Because Ashwini Kumaras could do that. They could actually bring someone who's dead back to life, and then they could rejuvenate an old body. And the reason he did that is because he thought, she's served me so faithfully, and she's married to this old ugly guy, and out of affection for her, I would like to rejuvenate my body so she could be married to a young, attractive man. And so the Ashwini Kumars arranged that he would bathe in the lake. I think it was called Siddhi Purim, or Siddhi something, which meant whatever you thought, you would have it. Siddhi means perfection. So whatever perfection you wanted, you'd think of it, you'd go in the lake, and you'd come out with it. And so he thought young and beautiful. And he went in the lake, and he came out young and beautiful. And she didn't know who it was. And she was afraid to approach him because she was so chaste that she didn't want to talk to another man. That's part of the Dharma of a woman. She doesn't have any relation with other men. Anyway, she found out from these Ashwini Kumaras, they also bathed, and they were also looking pretty good as well. But she could tell who they were, and she knew them, but she didn't know who this other man was. And so he said, well, that's your husband. And they explained everything. So because she so faithfully served him, she controlled him so much that he made that arrangement. Then you have another example. You have the example of Devahuti. Kardama was a sage, and so they lived in the forest. And it's described in the Bhagavatam, she lived in the forest like a sadhu. So she's a princess, and she's living in the forest. There's no washing machines. There's no hot running water. Probably weren't any washing machines in her palace, but at least there were people to wash the clothes, which is even better than a washing machine. So it's described. She was very thin because they were just eating what they could get. And you can imagine whatever that was, whatever was just growing there. And sometimes it's described they would eat little berries or even leaves. It was austere. So she was very thin, and her hair was matted because there was nothing to comb it with. So here's a princess with, dreadlocks, dirty clothes, very thin, and not looking very healthy. Because she was living there to help her husband, and then he saw that. And she desired to have a son, and he felt that she'd served me so well, I should offer her a son and I should reward her. So because of his mystic power, he created an aerial spaceship, and then she was rejuvenated and beautified and taken out on the town, so to speak. So that is a demonstration of what Prabhupada's saying. Another example was that, I forget who it was, someone's wife had noticed that the Pandavas seemed to be completely controlled by Draupadi, like they would do whatever she wanted. And so, naturally, if a woman sees another woman has complete control over her husband, or in this case husbands, she wonders, how did you do that? What do you do? Because, it's really hard to control men. Don't tell me what to do, I'm the boss. Right? So how is it that they do whatever you ask? And then she told them all the qualities of a wife, how she selflessly served, how she served the relatives, she never spoke ill against the relatives, whatever they'd want they'd do, and just satisfied them. And because of that, naturally they would do whatever she asked for. Thank you. It's okay. So the point I'm making is that the problem is that when you talk about the nature of a woman, you have to have the proper male who will reciprocate, and then it works perfectly. And when that doesn't happen, when the male is not properly reciprocating or protecting, then the woman tries to control and push. And although you might think it's woman's nature, it's not. It's just because they're not getting what they want and they don't know how to get it any other way. So they'll push, but it's not their nature. And if there's anything men don't like, it's a pushy, controlling woman. You agree? Yeah, that's because Prabhupada explained the male ego is control. The female ego is serve. That's the natural ego for the female is to serve. The natural ego for the male is to control. And that's why most men, I don't want to say all, but most men, if they have a wife who's very supportive, they're very happy. And if they have a wife who's very controlling, demanding, irritable, nasty, they're miserable. And they're so miserable that Chanakya Pandit has advised, if you have a wife like that, you should go to the forest because your home is a forest. And actually, you'd be more peaceful in the forest. You know those shlokas? Where the wife is irritable or the mother-in-law is like this, and it's a very toxic environment. He said you should leave it. He actually said that. So it shows how much a man appreciates support. I'm not sure where, it may be Artava Veda. Artava. It describes the qualities of a woman. And it says, although a woman is half the body of the man, they have a mutual relationship, and that they should decide things together. So it's not that the male is a dictator or an autocrat. But it says also that she should be, in whatever he does, she should support it. That's her position. That's what men like. They feel supported by their wife. They feel empowered because the wife cooperates and the wife supports. But that's natural for a woman. When I say natural, then the women may say, well, I don't feel that way. But my point is, because it's not the way you were raised. You were raised very much, in many ways you were raised with male qualities, and in many ways we were raised with female qualities. To an extent that we become irresponsible, or to an extent that you feel the need to control. So anyway, this is described by Prabhupada in the Bhagavatam, that you have to understand male-female psychology. And then, why is there so much divorce? What's the reason? It's one of these two aren't working, or they're both not working. The man's not protecting. And what does part of protection mean? It means he doesn't have any other women. That's part of protecting. It's her, and all his affection and energy goes to her, and he takes care of her. And she feels completely taken care of, physically, emotionally, spiritually. So she's satisfied. And then in that situation, she can serve, because that's her nature. Unless she's highly conditioned and fears serving. But I'm just making the point that that's, in a healthy environment, she'll naturally do that, and then she'll be happy. Is that all right? You don't like it? Thinking about it? You don't have good experience serving men?
Many questions.
Ask.
In this current day, if the man is practicing spiritual practice very nicely, somehow it doesn't guarantee that he'll be a good husband and he will not be a person.
Oh, if she serves, it doesn't guarantee he'll be a good husband.
Even if the man is practicing, if he's doing spiritual practice, it doesn't
Yeah.
guarantee that he'll be a good husband.
Yeah.
He will not be a person.
Well, that's my point. That it doesn't work if the man's not a good husband. Because if the man's not a good husband, it makes it difficult for you to manifest your nature. Because then he won't protect, or he'll take advantage of it. So, she's making the point that just because he's got good sadhana doesn't mean he's going to be a good husband. Right? Is that your point?
Ну, просто оценка достаточно высокая. И получается, что у жены квалификация хорошая, и у мужа нет.
The divorce rate is very high. That means that neither the wife has any good qualities to keep the family together, nor the husband.
Well, it may be. I mean, there are many reasons, but it may be the wife does, and the husband doesn't. And all right, let's go back a little bit. In Manus Samhita, and Prabhupada has said many times, that you should only marry once. And it's kind of like a big crime for a woman to remarry. Right? Man can do it. polygamy. Man can, it's not a crime for a man. He can just keep going, right? Of course, it's illegal. But according to Manasamhita, to be dedicated to one man, that's the highest dharma for the woman. So it's like in traditional Vedic culture or traditional Indian culture, even in India, Hindu culture, you'll see a lot of women, their husbands die young, they put on white, they're widowed, because every shastra says, unless, the man can't give you a child or he's a drunkard or something, you stay with him. So if he dies young, that's it. And you bring disrepute onto the family if you remarry, right? That's there. And there are many verses like that. It's just basically really bad if you do that, right? Now, along with that, you're being trained to be a wife, what it means to be a wife. Like how to serve the husband, how to cook for the husband, how to take care of a house, how to take care of your children. You're learning all that. So, right from the beginning, right from the beginning of your life, practically 5, 6 years old as a girl, this is impregnated in your head, right? Really, really deeply. And what's impregnated in the man is protection. To be a guru, to be a leader. So, if we were raised that way, things would be different. If I were raised, if you don't make it in this one marriage, that's it. It's over. You're going to probably make it. You're probably going to do what you have to do to make it because it's so important. And if you can, if there's a problem and you can get divorced, then it's easier to get divorced sometimes than fix the problem, because the problem seems so difficult to fix, right? Yes? Divorce seems easier for some people. So, we're up against that problem. So we come to ISKCON, Krishna consciousness. What is our samskara? What is our impression about men and women? How many boyfriends and girlfriends did you have before you became a devotee? And even if you didn't have any, how many did your friends have? What did you see? How many people in your neighborhood were divorced? How many people have you seen divorced in ISKCON? What do you see all around you? Not that. Right? So now you marry this man, he's a really good devotee. But what's his samskar for marriage? You finally get married to him, he's 22, but he's had 20 girlfriends before you. So this is going to be the first time in his life he's going to have to stick with one for more than a year. You want to bet on it working? Odds are against you, right? He's never done it before. And that's why Prabhupada said, education means teach the women chastity, teach the men brahmacharya. So when they grow up and get married, if they're brahmachari, they never had a girlfriend. They never thought of women sexually. It's different. And they've only thought about marriage as the highest dharma for a woman. It's a different culture, right? So you have this husband, he's a really good devotee and a really bad husband because he has no husband samskars. He has girlfriend samskars. And if he was a brahmachari who joined in the West, who grew up in the West, he may have other samskaras, like you detach from women by hating them or putting them down. That's how you remain detached. Which of course is not how to do it, but that's an immature way of doing it. So then he may start hating you because he likes you. He hates you because he likes you. Because the fact that he likes you makes him think, now I'm entangled, I'm attached. And the more he likes you, the more he hates you, because you become the cause of his falling down in Krishna consciousness. Because he's young and immature and he never got trained how to be a husband. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So he's a good devotee, but no husband samskars. No man samskars. Doesn't know, what it really means to be a husband, to protect, be responsible, one woman. I read in a book something I really appreciated. It wasn't by a devotee, but I'm sure he was probably very religious. And he said, in his experience, if you're married, you should have very, very little connection, minimal, no friendship with the opposite sex. Just, hello, goodbye, how are you, haven't seen you, like that. You shouldn't have any relationship with the opposite sex. In Vedic culture, that's just doesn't happen. We grow up, what? You have girlfriends who are not romantic partners, they're just friends, just in school, right? Hang out, in your group, and there's the girls and there's the boys, and they, right? There's a devotee, he's almost as old as I am. He said in his university, they had the same class for 4 years. It was co-ed, men and women, the same class. He said, in 4 years I never spoke to one woman in that class. It was not the culture. Every day, they were, so 30, 40 hours a week for 4 years. That's a lot of time together, and they never spoke. Interesting. So, does he have trouble being devoted to his wife? No, because that's how he was raised. And we're talking to girls and boys since the time we're 13 or 14, whatever, 12. Do we have trouble? Yes. So he's a good devotee. How do you know he's a good devotee? Well, he joined 6 years ago, and for the last 6 years he's been a good devotee. How do you know he'll be good for the next 50? You don't. Right? He's living in the ashram with brahmacharis. He has to get up at 4 o'clock, whether he wants to or not. How do you know what he's going to be like when he goes out? It seems like a good devotee. You know how so many good brahmacharis, when they get married, become like jelly? Because they lose the association. Jelly, and it's no strength. Yeah. So, if men become men, it allows women to become women. And then women can feel satisfied serving. And when men are served, they're happy. When men are supported, they're happy. It's like, do you want to get married so you can have someone tell you what's wrong with you? You met this beautiful woman. And she says, well, if you marry me, this is how it's going to be. I'm going to make all the decisions. Whenever you do something wrong, I'm going to tell you. And whatever your opinion is, I don't really care. If it's not mine, you just have to go along with that. Unless she's like an apsara or something, so beautiful that you lose your mind, most men would say, no, I couldn't live with that. When you had a woman, maybe not so beautiful, said, yeah, I'll help you, I'll support you. You protect me, I'll serve you, I'll take care of the home. Whatever you want, I'll live simply, I'll manage the money, whatever you give me. You'd say, yeah, that sounds good. Right? Otherwise, you bring home 1,000 rupees, and she said, why not 10,000? What's wrong with you? Get out there, work 2 jobs. So that's one of the qualities of a wife in our Shastra, that whatever you give, she manages, she spends. That's you like that, right? How many men like women who you give them 5,000 to run the house and 4,000 to spend on clothes, and in 1 week they have no money for the rest of the month? How many men like that? None. Nobody likes that. Drives him crazy. And he's got to get a second job to pay. Right? So, if you look at, to me, what's the cause of divorce? They're not happy. You talk about compatibility. You're going to have this amazingly compatible couple, and she doesn't want to serve and he doesn't want to protect. They're not going to be happy. It's not going to work. Because it's not their dharma. It's not their nature. So I think a lot of women are afraid to exhibit this nature, or worse, they don't even know. They've never really fully manifested that nature because it hasn't been encouraged, or they tried to manifest it and they got taken advantage of, exploited or cheated. Or they're not in touch with it. So we have some questions here. You have more questions? Keep asking.
How to find a balance between the level of chastity such as Sukanya has, and at the same time the Vedic standard. At the same time, in our case, we have some services we didn't have preaching to do.
Mm-hmm.
We still have some associations, have some contact with our
How to balance the ideal of Sukunya with preaching and with the fact that we weren't raised like Sukunya, and what else?
like this
То есть
master.
Ваня это не ходила книжки.
Sukanya didn't go for book distribution.
What? Say that again?
Sukanya didn't go for book distribution.
Oh, Sukanya didn't go for book distribution? Oh. Well, wouldn't the question be, what if my husband doesn't want me to go on book distribution? Or I could ask,
Ну, они сидели дома и помогали своим женам.
So they were sitting at home and just helping out their husbands.
how do you go on book distribution? Oh, well, okay, yeah. After you help him, you go out on book distribution. But when he comes home and there's no prasadam because you're on book distribution, either you have to ask him, is that okay? Or make an arrangement that he'll get prasadam from another devotee because you're not going to be home, and he's okay with that. And a lot of men would be okay with that, and a lot of men wouldn't be okay with that. But what do men want when they come home? What do they want to see? A dirty house, nothing on the table, and a wife that looks like she's just been run over by a truck? No. So the woman is considered to be the nurturing energy. So part of the nurturing energy is cooking, right? My wife made some cookies. She gave them to a devotee. No, she made cookies, she gave them to everybody. And one devotee said, these cookies taste just like the cookies my mother made. Can you give me that recipe? It reminds me of my mother's cooking. Now, he's a devotee, and his mother's not a devotee. But the power of mother's cooking is so strong, right? Because there's so much affection, right? Mother's cooking, or wife's cooking. So that's the nurturing, through food, not just physically, but the love, right? And that's what you get from a cow. The love of the cow, you get love in the milk. The vegans don't know that. It actually affects your consciousness in a positive way because the cows give out of love. So, what else do you get? What is the nurturing, right? They make the house beautiful. So you come home to a beautiful house. You go to a brahmacharya ashram. Have you ever seen a beautiful brahmacharya ashram? There's a few. No, I wouldn't say they're beautiful, but they're nice. But most devotees' homes are nice. At least nicer than brahmacharya ashrams. right? Generally. Most, right? Why? Because that's the nature of the woman. That's part of the nurturing nature. To create an environment so the husband comes home, there's this nice home, comfortable place to sit, everything's there, prasadam's cooked, she looks nice, so he doesn't have to look at, somebody who's disturbed or unkept. Even, can you imagine you're going to travel around the world for the next year, and you're given a servant to help you who's always depressed? That'll drive you crazy. After a few weeks, you'll just say, I can't travel with you, right? Or you have a servant, and everything he wears is dirty, it's torn, it's completely wrinkled, like really, really wrinkled, and you can't look at that. And you live with him, and he never cleans up, and all his clothes are on the floor, and so, the wife has the house clean, she's clean, your clothes are clean, everything. That's wife. That's what men want. And that's natural for a woman to do. Given the right environment, she'll do it. Now you might say you have women who are career women who don't want to do that. That's true. And there are many, many men who are very happy that their wives are working and they have extra income and they're happy to cook and clean and so forth. But there are many men who aren't, and if they're married to a career woman, that's going to create a problem. But this is generally what men like, right? So that's a general principle. When you become a wife, that's part of your duty to make sure that happens in between your book distribution or whatever else. Now, if you really want to get into book distribution, you talk with your husband and say, I want to stay out till 10 o'clock tonight distributing books. There's a big festival. Can you cook your own meal? Whatever. He might say, sure, you can distribute books, I'll cook my own meal. Some men won't say that. They'll say no. The extreme of that is, why should I cook for my husband? Sankirtan's more important. And so they come home and they don't even know that she's going to be gone, and they get home and there's nothing to eat. That sometimes happens also. So that's kind of frustrating, right? Now, when I was in Australia, right, the last class I left, I talked about Sukanya, and I said, how does a woman view Sukanya? Because there's very few women who can imitate Sukanya. But again, you have to understand the whole culture. At least if you understand it, it makes more sense. Why did she marry? Because her father asked her. Why did she do what her father asked her? Because what he asked her to do was kind of preposterous. Could you imagine, my daughter's 15, so I ask her, I find the oldest devotee in Mayapur, 85, and I say, you're going to marry him. People would kick me out of Mayapur. Right? Wouldn't they? So you can't come back. All my disciples would disown me. They think this is insane. This is child abuse. In that culture, you see father, you see teacher, you see elder brother, you see king, you see guru, all the same. Elder relatives. It's all the same. Utmost respect. What they say goes. Guru is God. Teacher is God. King is God. Mother's first guru. Elder brother. He's representative of the father. The father is representative. Father is guru. So you have to understand these things, and then you understand why she did what she did. Her father said, do it. Whatever he asked, she does. Dasarath told Ram, you're banished. He said, yes, father. The day before the coronation. Not just any time. Yes, father. And one amazing example is Mandodari, the wife of Ravana, who served him faithfully, and when he died, she chastised him. Said, your body's fit for jackals. You were just a real scoundrel your whole life. You caused so much torment. But she served because that's the Dharma. Even though he was bad, she served. That's her Dharma. That's the culture. So when you understand the culture, and then you see the culture we have today, and then you think about it, you have to make some judgments. How do we adapt this into our life? And of course, the first thing we'll say was, well, does it help you become Krishna conscious? That's what's important. But at the same time, the point I'm trying to make is that many of these things, which we cannot apply exactly because we don't have fathers we can respect as gurus, or kings we can respect as gurus. Even sometimes we don't have gurus we can respect as gurus. There's many, many bogus gurus in the world, right? But it's a principle. And so you have to apply it in the way you can apply it. And that's a principle of the wife, to take care of the husband. That's a very high dharma for her. And so when a woman becomes a devotee, then she may think, I don't have to do that because I'm a devotee. And then she may neglect her duties as a wife. That would be a misunderstanding. And I think it would be a misunderstanding on the part of the man to minimize the service of his wife just so she can serve him. And he would facilitate that. Right? He should. If he's a good husband. Because he's the guru and he's protecting her, and part of protecting her is to give her service. Right? Yes? What else?
Right now it's very popular on psychological forums that the ladies have two extremes. Either they're like not willing to serve their husband, or they're willing to serve that much that they become like a door, like a mat, and then the man does absolutely everything to her, and she is just being like very submissive.
Or the man becomes mean. So she doesn't want to serve because she'll be taken advantage of.
Or she overly serves and he does take advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. But that just...
They have lack of self-respect.
The men have, or the women? Because of the men. Yeah. Yeah.
So the lack of self-respect, like on the side of the lady, maybe not because of this man particularly, but just on her own, she doesn't have that, and then maybe with any man she would just...
If she doesn't have if she lacks self-respect, it's probably because of him. He hasn't given it to her. So he makes her feel worthless. You know, Prabhupada said, divorce, the main cause of divorce is the women. And then I said, the main cause of the divorce is the man. And I got in trouble. But it's true, most divorces are instigated by women. But if you actually examine it, they're really instigated by men. It's like, if I have a gun and I'm pointing it at you and you run out the door and said, you ran out? I didn't run out. It's something like that. You know, the man drives them out by his behavior, and then they can't take it, and so the woman is blamed for being the cause of divorce. So generally a woman won't run out of a house where there's a good husband. You agree? She agrees. You agree?
It all depends why they get married for. What is the original motive?
Yeah, okay, so in some cases you have a good husband and the woman is just, she'll never be satisfied with anyone. But one second, we use the example where the woman is good. If the woman is good and then she leaves, that'll be because of the husband. Generally. And he's done something to make it intolerable. Now, in the case of Sukanya, she tolerated. But in the case of modern woman, if you torment a woman to the degree that she can't tolerate and then tell her you should be like Sukanya, that's adding salt to the wound. Isn't it? You agree? A man makes it intolerable and then he says, well, Sukanya tolerated. What kind of protection is that? To make it intolerable for her.
I think that in Krishna consciousness, the marriages are more difficult because many times you marry someone from the material world, they have so many material desires and they realize, oh, with this guy I'm never going to be able to do this and that.
Yes, that's true.
And then subtly she forces you to.
Yeah.
In other words, she shows herself the door by turning the blame towards you.
Yeah. But, that's true. But at the same time, any man who gets married has to take in consideration that may happen. Because when we say women are less intelligent, we don't mean academically. We mean they like to shop. They identify with the body way more than men do. That's what we mean, right? They're really into the home and they're really into comforts and to looking good. I was just watching something and this guy went out on the streets in Mumbai or some city in India and he asked girls, what do girls do when they're alone? And the girls say, they just look in the mirror and think how attractive they are, and try on clothes, and that's what all the girls said. I'm not, I don't have anything against women looking in mirrors, but that's what they said they do. Guys don't do that. There's a difference. I mean, I'm sure some guys do, but I'm sure some girls don't, but in general, So my point is, when you get married, as a man, you have to understand that nature is there. It'll be controlled more or less depending who the woman is, but And to be married, to be a husband means, okay, I got to give that to you. Saris, jewelry, kids, home. Prabhupada said, that's what you got to do. You agree? Yeah. So when we say, like for us, what do we need? You got this big, beautiful house, right? You just build a little closet, something a little bigger than a closet. You have some books in your bed. You're happy, right? And the whole rest of the house is for her. That's what she needs, right? So when we say women are less intelligent, it's not up here we're talking about. It's the needs. It's the identification with the home, with the body.
And I've also seen where a woman in Krishna consciousness, she's so much into her service.
She neglects
the husband, she neglects his desires, and eventually he's forced to leave her because she's married to Krishna.
That's what we were talking about, but that's artificial. That's the woman becoming male, I think.
But she's utilizing, she's in Krishna's service, how can it be artificial?
But then she shouldn't have gotten married.
Right.
It's the same thing, like sometimes a man doesn't want to be a husband and say, well, why did you get married? And Prabhupada would always say, well, it's too late now, you already did it. So now that you did it, you have to do it. Oh, I used to be able to go on Sankirtan, now I have to work at the office, and you're lamenting. Well, okay, but you can't give it up now. Be responsible. So that's important, I think. Like I made a decision thinking this would make me happy, and then I see the consequence of the decision. It's compromised my devotional service. Well, now make the best use that you can of it. Right?
Usually the tendency is just, hey, forget it. I want to continue to be a devotee.
Yeah,
Get
yeah.
to go to hell.
Yeah.
That's the tendency.
But in the long run, if you can figure out how to be Krishna conscious doing it, you'll be better off. No, yeah, but that's the point. You're supposed to protect her and she's supposed to serve you. And if either of you say, to hell with it, it's getting in the way, then the only legitimate way to do that Prabhupada would allow is, okay, both separate and you become a widow and you become Vanarprastha and go your own way. But don't do it again. And if you're going to do it again, then stay together. That was the idea. Okay, separate. It doesn't work. You want to serve Krishna? Okay, that's fine. There are no kids involved. Just don't do it again.
It's usually, it's not that they stay in the womb, they want to go out in the material world and you're left with the kids and you're forced to marry someone else. It's all emergency.
All right, the conclusion is, all the women should get married and all the men should remain brahmachari.
I saw Prabhupada when he said that.
Yeah.
He was crying when he looked at the brahmacharis. Don't get married.
Yeah.
You will see.
And Prabhupada said that's like our perplexity, because all the women should be married. But then what a man has to go through to maintain a family, as opposed to the service he could do, or if he was a brahmachari, he can do tremendous service. So what to do? You have a good husband, a good wife, she'll compromise for him, he'll compromise for her. They'll work it out. That's why the Vedas say it's half. A woman's half the body. That means they're going to decide, they're going to work things out, they're going to compromise. They're going to fulfill one another's needs. That's what it means. I mean, the thing is, Grihastha life is good because most people get married for the wrong reason, and they realize sooner or later that if it's going to stay together, it's going to stay together for the right reason, which may not be the reason they got married, which is responsibility and service. So I'm going to serve you, I'm going to help you, and I'm going to make sacrifices, which is very good if you do, because you become stronger. But you enter the marriage thinking, you're going to make me happy, and I'm going to make sure you make me happy. And I will control you to make me happy. And it doesn't work. Either I try to control you, or you try to control me. And then the only thing you realize is, no, I'm supposed to find out what you need and serve you. And that'll make you happy. And if you do that to me, that'll make me happy. And if you don't learn that lesson, you'll just fight and be miserable and waste all that time you could have used in serving Krishna on fighting with your wife or husband. Right? Yes? You have that experience? Yes or no? No. You have good experience? You have good experience? Or no experience? Oh, no good experience. Yeah. So, then what we've done, in many cases, we've taken the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and then we've applied it in a way that is unnatural within a grihastha ashram. And it may work really well in a renounced ashram, and then bring it into the grihastha ashram and it doesn't work. And that's why you have all this tension in the grihastha ashram, because the principles of the brahmacharya ashram don't always translate well, or some of them don't translate well in the grihastha ashram. Then you have conflict. Did I tell you the joke the other day? If you make a mistake and you say you're sorry, you're honest, and if you make a mistake, you're not sure you made a mistake, but you'll just say I'm sorry. That means you're wise. You're not sure, but just say I'm sorry. And if you didn't make a mistake, and you still say I'm sorry, that means you're a husband. There's a story. Boy wants to get married. He says, Father, I want to get married. And the father says, say I'm sorry. He says, why? Just say I'm sorry. But I didn't do anything. Just say I'm sorry. Why should I say? Just say, but I want to get married. Just say I'm sorry. They're going back and forth. Finally, he says, okay, I'm sorry. He said, now you can get married. So what's happening a lot is you have this like really nice Krishna conscious program, living in the ashram, good sadhana, good preaching, right? And then you get married and it all gets disrupted. And then you think marriage is the fault and then you want to give it up. Marriage has ruined everything. It's very common. Because you entered as a brahmachari or you kept the brahmacharini consciousness and the wife didn't accept her position as servant, he didn't accept his position as protector, controller, provider. But if they both do it, then my whole point is it's like two halves and it fits perfectly together, except if this half has got part of the sides of this half and this half has part of the sides of that half, then they don't fit. So too much female in the male, too much male in the female, and it doesn't work. My personal opinion is that some people should never get married because they're just not cut out for it. And a lot of people know that and they don't get married, and a lot of people don't know that until they get married. Then they find out that actually I'm not cut out for this. But if they were educated beforehand, then they would know whether or not they're cut out for it. At least they would know what they have to do to make it work. And you might say, I'm not cut out for it. But at the same time you might say, but I have a desire to be with the opposite sex. So although I'm not cut out for it, I have this desire. So then if you want to fulfill that desire, you have to cut yourself for it. You have to become cut out for it. I want an iPhone 7, but I'm not cut out to pay for it. Well, then don't get it. No, but I really want it and I really need it. Well, if you really want it and need it, get the money. Go and work and get the money, then you can have it. It's like that. And if you want it, then become what you have to become. Does that make sense? Is that okay? Arguments?
Just comment
Yeah.
about the
Yes.
people who are not supposed to get married. Are actually, some people, they just need certain maturity. They shouldn't, let's say, marry before 30 or even before 35. That's written in the astrological charts. But it's better for them to get married at 36, particular reason. That's very...
Yeah,
and
I agree.
it's actually showing in their chart that their marriage is delayed. If they still rush into relationship, then it's not working.
Yeah, I can see.
But some people, it is true. It's delayed up to there's no marriage. It is true.
Yeah, they can't do it.
It is true. But again, people until they will do mistakes and realize it, that well, at least they understand. Yes, so I have to work on something.
Yeah. And what you say is true, but I think the people who are not mature could become more mature if they were educated, so that even if they did marry too soon, it wouldn't be as bad as it would normally be. So we have a question. What if you lose your love for your husband? throw him in the river with weights on his feet. Vedic ideas, this is your husband. It's not about you love him or not. This is your husband. This is the person you're supposed to love. That's it. That's it. This is this is your wife, this is your daughter, this is your husband, your father. This is the person you're supposed to love. What if I don't love him? Then whose fault is that? His or yours? That's your fault.
As Indian saying, like in the West, people they love, they marry, but in India they marry, then they love.
Yeah. They learn to love after they get married. In India, you get married and then you learn to love. In the West, you love and you get married and then you get divorced. It's like you ask this question, how do you love somebody if a marriage is arranged? Because in that culture, for a woman, the husband is the person they love. It's not a question if they love him or not, it's just the one you're supposed to love. There's no question of not loving him, right? That's the person you love. That probably doesn't make sense to a lot of Westerners. The shorter answer is, most people have no idea what love is, and most people don't love. If you've seen a couple together for 50 years, you can say, okay, they love one another. But a couple together for a few years, and you say they love one another, what proof do you have?
But if they're together for many years, even then it's not true they love each other.
Yeah,
I heard from my husband who told me, me and my wife, we tolerate each other. We would be divorced, but there is a house, and if we are separated, what do we lose a house? We will lose a house. We are attached to the house, so we stay together.
But the Vedic, that's true, but the Vedic concept of love is not romantic love. So, if I stay together with my wife, even though I don't love her, that's love. I stay together with my husband, even though I don't like him, that's love, because it's my dharma. So, for us, dharma is love. And in the Western concept, basically, adharma is love. What is love?
For the Swami, he said that love means that there is a relationship, and there are many, many reasons to end this relationship. But the relationship doesn't have
Many reasons to end the relationship, and you keep it going. That's love. I mean, there's so many times in my life, I would sit down and tell myself, you have no idea what love is. I don't know if you love anything or anybody in your life other than your belly and your tongue and your eyes and your ears and your nose. Like, love, The closest thing to love, Prabhupada said, mother is the mother and the child, or the guru and disciple. Because that's the closest thing to something selfless. But as soon as sense gratification comes into it, it ruins it. Yes?
You're saying that you think there are some people that should never get married. But just in the history of Islam, maybe not so much now, people who are taking sannyas at a young age.
Yeah.
Majority would fall down, or they would brahmacharis would stay brahmachari for too long and they would go away.
Yeah.
So it seems a little...
Well, I've seen people who should get married but can't. Notice they can't do it. So that's why I meant they should. There's some people that shouldn't get married because all they do is cause trouble to their wives because they can't do it. They need to, but they can't. It's just their nature, They're incapable. And some are amazing people, but they can't live with a woman. It's just impossible for them. Everything about the woman, it disturbs them. That's their nature. I've seen that also. There's no glue to bind them in the relationship because there's nothing they like about the relationship. That's their nature. And if they get married, it's a disservice to the woman because they're never really a husband. Could be a very nice person, very gentle and kind, but everything about family is it's not attractive. You've seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously sannyasis have that, but some people have that who aren't sannyasis, and they get married, and they have a hard time. And some I've seen, they can't have really good relationships with anybody, men or women. You've seen that? Yeah. So they get married, it never works. But it doesn't work with the same sex either. They have horrible relationships with the same sex. If a woman is serving a bad husband, is that the same as devotional service? Depends what you mean by bad. That's a question you'd have to answer on an individual case. But you have this example of Mandodari serving Ravana. It's kind of an amazing example. But Prabhupada said you don't have to serve a bad man, but I think that without proper education, when most people get married, they're going to have all kinds of trouble. And as we know, most of those marriages are going to fail. Because I talk to people and I look at them, and I just say, there's no way you can have a successful marriage based on how you think. Your whole concept of male-female, of marriage, of what you need, what you have to give, it's wrong and it won't work. And you'll drive yourself crazy and you'll drive the man crazy. So until you sort that out, it's like if you're cooking something and you do everything wrong, it tastes horrible. It's burnt, there's too much salt, there's not enough spice. So some marriages are like that. It's like everything they do is wrong. And it's just a mess. And some people they're entering a marriage and they don't know what it means to be a husband, they don't know what it means to be a wife, their whole expectation is off, their whole concept of love is off, their concept of dharma is off, they're overly self-centered, they're unstable. And there's a whole list of disqualifications. And I look at them and they'll say, do you think I should marry this person? And I don't say anything. Because if I did, I would say, I don't think you should marry anybody. And I just say, well, see how it works out. And I know 100% it won't work out. So rather than upset them, I'll just go see how it works out. And if it lasts more than 2 years, I would be in state of shock. You just know that, because they don't know. And they're solely entering it to get something personally, and they don't know how to give. Yes?
People also have experience. People very often ask, they want a good relationship, they ask astrologers, what's our compatibility? I said, I'm explaining, it's not compatibility, it's your service mood. How much you're gonna give this person,
Yeah.
actually how much you carry. You can have 100% compatibility, but if you're both self-centered,
Yeah.
both wants
Yeah, of
that
course.
another person will
Yeah,
help you
yeah.
to fulfill your unfulfilled needs, it's not gonna work.
Compatibility
Selfish people.
is overrated. The whole problem is you're going into a relationship to get something, not to give. So many disciples, they go into a relationship to get from the guru more than to give. They have 108 problems. They go, I need a guru so he can solve all my problems. So they call the guru, can you solve this one, check off all the problems. And then all the problems get solved, and then the guru never hears from them again. No thought of what can I give, just what could I get, right? It's the same mentality that ruins a marriage. What can I get? Instead of what can I give, right? Where the whole thing in bhakti is what can I give? That's how you advance, by giving, right? Isn't it? But so many times it's all about what can I get. Yes.
So when do you recommend teaching with the children in school these
Yeah.
kind of behaviors?
Yeah.
There should be some
11, 12, 13. Yeah.
Do we have that already installed?
Here we do. But I recommend it taught in every brahmachari and brahmacharini ashram. I think that's important. You know, the reality is we're coming from a culture where our concept of love is completely it's completely molded by media, novels, movies, music, which has nothing to do with the reality of living in a relationship with another person and raising a family. It has nothing to do with it at all. And then you're looking, I mean, it's right there in the Bhagavatam, 12th canto. Marriage will be based on sex. It's right there, the verse. And as soon as there's a disruption in sex, there'll be divorce. Those are the predictions of Kali Yuga, right? In India today, practically every kid in the university, you know what they're thinking about next to money? Sex. And how do I know that? Because how can you not think about that in this culture unless you're a devotee? Because it's all around you. It's already ingrained in the heart, and the culture is just pulling it out of you through the music, through the movies, through the novels, through the radio, television, advertising. Isn't it? So how can you not be thinking about it? And then you want to get married to fulfill that desire? Is that going to be fulfilled? Who's going to fulfill it? Can it ever be fulfilled? It's crazy. You know, if there were no divorce, then you could all disagree with what I'm saying. Say, no, it's not true. There's real love, this and that. But now, who knows what real love is? Most marriage decisions are based on sex, on how the other person looks, sex appeal, or subtle. What can I get from it? You know, all these men wanted to take sannyas. 20 years old, 25 years old. You took sannyas in ISKCON in the 70s. Any temple you go to, you would get every offering delivered to your room. And just the fact that you had a room, no brahmachari had a room. We all lived, you know, in rooms like this, wall to wall, just sleeping bags. When you're a sannyasi, you got a room. That was huge. Huge. And you got a servant. Nobody got a servant. Nobody. That was huge. And you got every maha plate. And you go anywhere in the world, travel and preach, and everyone will kiss your feet. Would you want to take sannyas? Hell yeah. That's the life. That's the life, right? And so all these men are writing Prabhupada, I want to be sannyas, I want to be sannyas. And Prabhupada finally, got fed up, put his foot down. He goes, sannyas is for austerity, sleep 4 hours, eat a little bit. Oh, I don't want to do that. If that's what sannyas is all about, I don't want to do that. Prabhupada had to lay it on the line that sannyas is not about enjoying. It's about austerity. So in the same way, hey, there's Bhaktin Betty. She's got blue eyes and blonde hair. I'm Indian with brown skin. If I could get one of those, that's like the jackpot. That's Las Vegas. Wow, isn't it? Blonde hair, blue eyes. If you're Indian, wow. What more could you want from that? And she comes from a rich family too, right? I want it all. Yeah. Then we have to sit you down and go, this is what it means to be a husband. And you hear the reality, you might think, oh, I don't think I want to do that. But if you hear the reality and you say, okay, I'm ready to do that, you'll probably have a successful marriage. You agree? Yeah. So that's the problem. You're entering it in the name of love, that I love you, and that means I'm going. Like this guy said, this rabbi said, this is love. Someone says, I love fish. You kill the fish and you love fish. So he said, marriage is fish love. Say, I love fish. I love you. What do I love? I love sex with you. Is that love? That's exploitation. And so for a marriage to work, you have to come to this level of self-sacrifice where you're really thinking about the other person. Which is why it's so purifying if you do it right, and why it's so destructive if you do it wrong. Because if you do it wrong, you become more self-centered. It makes you more self-centered, isn't it? When a husband and wife are having a big fight, what are they fighting about? Needs. I want this, you don't give it to me. No, I want that, you don't give it to me. Isn't it? Think about the fights you have. What's it over? Isn't it about what you want you're not getting? Or what he wants and he's not getting? Or who can control what? So if you can go beyond that and fulfill another person's needs, then you could call that love, or something close to it. Then you could call it, what's Prabhupada's definition of love? The man protects the wife serves the husband. You can call that love. You know what Prabhupada said love is? He said, the woman is so attached to the man that when he dies, she kills herself because she can't live without him. He said, that's love. Another definition he gave of love, he saw a poor couple. They were living on the street, and the wife was right there by the side of the man. Said she will never leave him no matter what happens. He said, that's love. You heard that lecture?
But I haven't heard the exact word.
Yeah. That's love. The husband lost everything. They're on the street. They have nothing. And the wife is there serving, cooking in a can on a fire on the sidewalk. He said, that's love. Not this romantic love. That's not love. That's the problem. Then you get messed up. Because then you don't get what you want. Right? Does that make sense? So the question, why did Sita go to the forest with Lord Ram? Because she would not live better than her husband. That's love. He's going to do austerity, I go with him. I don't live better than my husband. That's nice, huh? Isn't it? That the wife thinks that way? The wife of, what's it? Gandhari. My husband's blind, I can't see. I'll blindfold myself. I don't want to be better than him. That's love. So if we want to talk about love, we have to use these definitions of these great women and how they love their husband. Then if you use, Bollywood, it's going to destroy you. Because that's not real. That's not real life. That's just addictive love. That's a high, I need that addiction and then to get me high. That's not love. I have to see if anybody's still watching after that. Clinton saying, I'm listening at work to this lecture, and he said, I don't know what I'm doing, I should become a brahmachari, but I cannot trust ISKCON in my country. But I've got a plan. Is it bad or lucky to have a wedding with yajna in the temple in front of the deities without being initiated? I was going to tell him to ask his guru, but I'm his guru, so... No, I don't remember how Prabhupada did it. I think, as I remember, devotees wanted to get initiated. But Prabhupada, didn't he say first? They want to get married, and he said first get initiated, then get married. Or first get married, then get initiated.
First initiated, devotees should get married.
Should be married before you're initiated.
Should be married after the initiation.
Oh, after initiation. All right, get initiated, then married. Yeah, Okay. Get initiated, then married. But what if you're already married and you didn't have a yagya? Anyway. Either way is good. Okay. So we're going to talk about prema now? Is that okay? I got excited. This is one of my pet peeves, that, because this society is just, it's corrupting all of us. It's destructive. It's so bad. It's horrible. Okay, we're going to stop and come back so we can title this separately, okay? Count to 10 and we'll be back.